Welcome on to another episode of the Baseball Insiders. As you can see, this is not Adam Weinrib with me. This is the guy who I credit with my career, guy who basically changed my life. It's Jon Heyman. John, how's it going?
I'm good. You're way too kind. You've done it all yourself. I have nothing to do with it, but that's very nice. Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. Yeah, John took me in when I was about 18, working at FanReg Sports, and lucky enough, we're still friends to this day. John, I'm curious. Do you remember anything about 18-year-old Robert Murray? I'm very curious.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you're a good kid. You've always been a good kid. Yeah, but a little bit. You were 18. Wow, good for you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah,
amazing, incredible. You're able to do this. How old are you now?
I'm 28 now, so I'm getting close to 30.
That's all right. Get to 60 rapidly. And talk to me.
No, well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's crazy how time flies. But no, we appreciate you joining us, or joining me today, I should say. I want to talk about a lot of stuff with the trade deadline as it rapidly approaches here. And I'm curious this is non-trade deadline related though, but I saw you wrote in the post the other day that the Yankees need Juan Soto. It's become increasingly clear how much they need him. There's a lot of talk on Twitter about a possible extension before he reaches free agency. I personally don't think that has any chance of happening. I'm curious on your end, do you think there's a possibility? And eventually, what do you think his contract is going to be?
You're very smart. That doesn't have any chance of happening. He's turned down 7 contract offers to this point, and now he's months from free agency. So he's not going to accept a deal now. And I think the Yankees know that deep down. It was nice publicity for Hal Steinbrenner to come out and say we'd like to sign him in season. Doesn't hurt. I mean, maybe they'll give it a shot, but I don't see any chance that happening. I do think they have a good chance after the season, though. I mean, look how great things are going. He seems to love it. He certainly likes the roll call of the bleacher guys. So, the team's doing great. As we do this, they have the best record in baseball. I mean, what's not to like? I think he has relatives in New York. I think he prefers the East Coast. But, there are going to be teams out there, obviously, for a 25-year-old free agent, right? The Mets need to do something, right? Who knows with the Dodgers? They seem to have limitless funds. Phillies, maybe. I'm in Boston right now. You probably couldn't tell that. This could be any hotel room, but I'm in Boston. Who knows? Maybe they'd like to, repay them for the Babe move. I don't know. There are going to be teams out there for a 25-year-old free agent having another spectacular season, one of his best seasons so far to date. But he's in a great position, batting right in front of Judge in New York. Seems to love it. Does that mean he's going to leave money on the table to sign with the Yankees? I'm not sure about that. I think like most free agents, he likes the money. So no guarantees, but, I think it would be best for all if they could figure it out.
Do you think the number eventually, do you think it starts with a 5 or a 6 in terms of his contract?
Yeah, 500, I'll just say 500 is the baseline. So that was a good question. I don't know. I'm sure they're shooting over 6, but, the reality of it is, Ohtani, while he got 700, it's really worth 460, right? So he's a pitcher and a hitter. Now he's 29, not 25, but he's an international superstar. So, they may point and say that wasn't a good deal. They don't like that deal. They think it was odd and all this deferrals, and maybe he's trying to get around the tax or something. I don't know, doing something funny. But I think your question is good. Certainly we'll get over 5. Will he beat 600? Not sure. If I were to guess today, I'd probably guess 14 times 40. What is that, 560? So right in the middle there. I'm taking the middle road there.
There we go. Your math is much better than mine, so I tip my cap to you on that one because, that's impressive, John.
Well, you didn't waste your time in school. You went you became a professional at 18, so good for you.
Crazy. There we go. I appreciate good memory on your end. That's I like that. But so going back to a more trade deadline focused, what's your early read on what the trade deadline and what kind of sellers could be out there at this point?
Yeah, it's clearly going to be a seller's market. There aren't a ton of sellers. Right now, there's only 2 teams in the National League that are really out of it at this point. Even the Mets, what are they, 8, 9 games under as we do this? they're still within like 3.5 games of that last wild card spot. Last wild card spot is a losing record, right? A Pittsburgh, San Francisco losing record right there at the number 6 spot. And as we've seen the last couple of years, the team that finished 6th in the National League got to the World Series, didn't win the World Series, got to the World Series. Philly 2 years ago, Arizona last year. So looks like a lot of buyers. I mean, maybe some teams will slide down and give up and decide to become sellers. But right now we have a very limited number of sellers. Miami, Colorado. In the National League is it, and in the American League, probably only 3 sellers at this point. White Sox, Angels, A's, I'm going to say. So you got 5 sellers and 25 potential buyers. So it's a seller's market. I still see, a fair number of starters out there. No real aces. I guess Tyler Anderson is pitching like an ace, but no real number 1 type starters. There are good bullpen pieces out there, very good. If Mason Miller is traded from the A's, that would be a big one. Tanner Scott's doing great with the Marlins. We're a really good closer. He's with the Marlins, so not everybody knows about him, but right now he's been dominant. Kenley Jansen could be traded, so the Red Sox, they may be a seller too. So we may have, I'm sure we'll have more than 5 sellers. Wouldn't be shocked if the Red Sox sell. The Rays could sell. Mets kind of on the bubble. So, we'll probably end up with 10 sellers eventually. But right now it does look like a seller's market for sure. But decent number of closers out there, I think. That's the one thing I would say. You'll see some closers out there. Not a ton of superstars unless Luis Robert is traded and they're investigating it, but no guarantees there.
Yeah, I was actually just about to ask about Luis Roberts, so that's perfect timing by you. I saw you mention yesterday in the Bleacher Report stream, and that's one of the many things that you do in addition to the Post and MLB Network. But you mentioned 6 potential suitors for Robert. I'm curious what you think that market could look like, and ultimately, do you think he could be moved?
Yeah, I think there's a decent chance that he will be moved. I was speculating at this point. It's very early in the game. He just got back, and he's only batting around 200. So he hasn't really shown that he's going to play like he did last year when he had 38 home runs. And, he's won a Gold Glove in the past. I do think he's 26, so I think a lot of teams are going to love him, and I think a lot of teams are going to love that contract, which is only for $63 million through 2027 if you pick up those 2 $20 million team options. So very reasonable contract, very talented player. Obviously he's had some health issues, which is a concern, but, he's going to need to stay on the field and perform well, and the White Sox are going to have to see what they can get for him. Now I was just speculating with those 6 teams, but I do think the Dodgers generally will be aggressive, and they're looking at a number of different things. So that's a team that could look at him, certainly. I know the Phillies are looking at outfield. I kind of think they're more going for that 4th outfielder type that McCarthy from the Diamondbacks I saw was a possibility. So I'm not sure that that's going to be a realistic possibility. The Royals could use an outfielder. The Mariners definitely need some offense. Giants, potentially. We've been speculating on outfielders with the Giants forever now. But, there are certainly some teams that need outfield help. And, I could see him getting traded at this point. The White Sox are so far out of it right now. You can't envision them as a contender. Certainly not next year. Could they be in 2 years? They were a playoff team, only a few years ago, right? So maybe they can go backward and go good in the next couple of years. Maybe it's possible, but not next year. So they're an extreme seller, and I do think they're talking seriously about Fetty, Crochet, Kopech. So, the White Sox have the worst team, but they might have the best sale.
Yeah, they got plenty of pieces. And, for their pitching, they got to have a bunch of different suitors for those guys. But, when you mentioned the list of sellers in the National League, you didn't end up mentioning the Mets. And there's obviously a lot of talk about possibly trading Pete Alonso and then trying to re-sign him in the offseason when he's a free agent. Do you think, right now, where do you think things stand in terms of a possibility of an Alonso trade? Is that a realistic thought for them or not yet?
Yeah, if they're in the same spot at the deadline, being 8-9 games under, probably should be a seller. I understand Arizona made it last year with 84 wins. And right now, I guess the Mets are kind of predicted to go around 78, and they have a fairly easy schedule coming up, right? think 31 of their next 33 games are against losing teams. Of course, they're a losing team as well. So who knows what's going to happen there? I think there's a decent chance they do end up trading Alonso now. I mean, is it 50-50? I don't know, but I think they could do it. I know the fan base wouldn't be thrilled. Can they do it and then sign him back? I mean, teams have attempted to do that. It's been done a few times. It's pretty rare. Once you trade him, I don't think the same pull for him to stay will be there once he's traded. And at that point, it's all about the money for sure. I think that's certainly a consideration. And, one extra reason that a lot of people haven't pointed to for them to possibly trade him is that if they hold on to him and give him the qualifying offer, they're so far over the threshold now, they only get a 4th-round pick if he signs elsewhere. So not a big value in the qualifying offer situation with him.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's something I actually hadn't thought about myself. So switching gears away from the Mets and Pete Alonso here. There's been a lot of talk about the Angels. I know I reported the other day that Taylor Ward is available. He is someone that there's plenty of teams that are poking around, at least at this point. Do you think, how aggressively do you see the Angels being sellers here? We mentioned Tyler Anderson before. Obviously, I have Taylor Ward. Joe Adell's asking price is really high, but how do you view them as a trade deadline seller here?
Well, as you know, hindsight is 20/20, and they should have traded Ohtani last year and really remade their club rather than trading prospects and adding pieces that didn't really work. Giolito, the other guys they got, they just did not really perform for them, and they could have gotten a ton for Ohtani. They don't have anybody like that to trade, but I do think Ward, Esteves, and particularly Tyler Anderson, who's in his second year of a 3-year, $40 million deal, could bring them back some decent prospects. And I mean, they need to be in a situation where they're rebuilding. Kevin Pillar looks like he's on his way to his greatest season ever. Obviously,
unreal.
He's not a young guy, and they signed him for almost nothing. But you know what? Teams like guys who are making almost nothing. And, he's a guy who's good in the clubhouse, good defender. Even if he's not going to continue to hit like this, he's still going to be a trade piece that does have value. So I think their their market's pretty decent. They're going to do okay. Like I said, the White Sox, I think, would do the best if they do trade Robert, but I think the Angels will do pretty well as well.
Yeah, I do think they are regretting probably not trading Shohei Ohtani last year. That seemed it was a definite mistake in the moment. And then, that just did not work out very well.
And they should have when he offered made his offer to several teams about the $700 million with the heavy deferrals. There were a couple teams that said yes, and he picked the one that he wanted to go to the Dodgers. But the Angels were not one of those teams. I mean, they didn't trade him. They held on to him. They loved him. He loved it there. He wanted to be in California. There are people who think he would have stayed with the Angels if they had done that. I don't know if that's right. We'll never know. He's not going to reveal anything. He's still not telling us anything. He does these interviews about the games, and that's it. But there are people around the Angels who do believe he would have stayed had they said okay. And I don't know whether it's because they're thinking about selling the team that they didn't do it. I mean, to me, it's better to have Ohtani on the team if you want to sell the team, especially with a good team contract. And I think that is a good team contract.
No, 100%. And I remember even like a year when Ohtani had a year and a half of control, there was plenty of teams that still were poking around. I know the Padres were poking around. I mean, they eventually got Juan Soto, but I mean, possibly even getting Ohtani. I mean, that would have been unbelievable.
Well, there was something when they had Peter Seidler running that team. I mean, they tried for Judge. Every big star they tried for, right? And I think they were trying to sign Soto when Peter Seidler unfortunately became ill and soon passed away. I mean, obviously, this is a guy who really wanted to win. What a great owner he was, and it's very sad they're not in that situation now. But hey, give the Padres some credit. They've made the two biggest deals in the last few months, right? Getting Cease and Arise. And so who knows what they're going to do? I don't think they don't have a ton of money, but AJ Preller, whatever you want to say about him, he is creative.
No, that he is. And I'm curious now, what do you think they could end up doing? Add another bat, another starting pitcher? What are you thinking here?
I mean, they're looking at the bullpen for sure. With questions about the health of Musgrove and Darvish, He's certainly going to look at starting pitching. I don't think they have a ton of money. It's really going to take some real creativity. But look, even after that trade for Soto, where they gave up 5 great prospects, they rebuilt that system. I mean, they're not going to trade that catcher, the great catcher that they have, young catcher, Salas. Salas. They're not going to trade him. Obviously, not trading Merrill. But they have other prospects, and they're willing to take a chance, and they're in playoff position right now. And look, I mean, who knew they could pull off that deal for a rise that they did for the 19-year-old kid? And a lot of people think that Dylan Head could be the next Kenny Lofton, and that would be fantastic. But he's 19, right? He's in Class A, and they somehow got the Marlins to pay down all of Arise's deal, and they took that reliever that they imported for $4.5 million. Now that was a mistake, and both sides I think knew that he wasn't worth anything, but the Marlins took it and they eat another $4.5 million. So he was able to pull off something pretty good there, and obviously he's got a rapport with the Marlins, and the Marlins got a lot going on between Luzardo and Tanner Scott. So we shall see.
No, that we will, and I apologize in advance for this next question because I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But who do you think, when it's all said and done, who do you think is the best player who's moved here at the deadline? I know I'm going to say
Robert. I mean, I think it's 50-50 on Robert at this point, but I mean, I think he's probably the best player that's moved. The guy who might bring the most is Mason Miller from the A's if they do trade him. And look, the A's are not. They're doing okay for what you'd expect for a team with basically without a home. They're almost homeless.
Yeah.
They're in a bad spot, right? They've done well considering on the field, but I mean, they're years away. We're talking about a relief pitcher who's in his mid-20s, throws very hard. You never know. And, there's going to be a lot of teams clamoring for him. So, I mean, to me, and I'm hearing from the other teams more than the A's, and they're saying they should trade him. And I kind of agree. I don't know if I'm persuaded by them, but I think they should trade him. So that's another really good player who's going to get traded. And, I think Boston's going to trade some good pieces. I think the Rays may trade Eflin. I think they're willing to make trades. I don't think the Jays are going to trade Bichette or Vlad. So I think they stay put. And I don't think Houston trades Bregman or any of their pieces. I think they go for it. So it's probably the guys we're hearing about, Robert and Miller.
Yeah. And on a lighter note, I got to ask, what's your favorite thing from Olive Garden? I had that.
The prices are good. I have been there. I was dragged there one time, and I mean, it wasn't. They kept bringing more and more food. You wonder what the quality of this food could be. It didn't taste terrible, but I mean, was it basically all you can eat? I mean, that's what it seemed like. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't taste terrible. Might be the nicest thing you've ever said about Olive Garden in our conversation. So we're trying.
Well, you've moved on. I think you have other favorite restaurants by now.
Yeah. Thankfully, moving out of Sheboygan Falls and then coming to Scottsdale now has expanded my palate a little bit. But I do know you're an Arby's guy. I think everyone wants to know what's your go-to order from Arby's.
Just a regular Arby's sandwich. But the key is you got to go half Arby's sauce, half horsey sauce. The combination there, the mixing of the two that really makes the sandwich.
All right. Well, that's the insider analysis on the Arby's situation there. That makes John the best right here. I got a couple more baseball questions if you don't mind, and then I can let you go over to Fenway for Phillies and Red Sox here. But there was some people. We have a Discord channel where people can ask questions, and one of them wanted to know what you thought that the Braves would end up doing. Obviously, they have a need for starting pitching. But what do you see them doing here?
Yeah, I think I threw them in the mix for Robert, but I think the more likely, because with Acuna out, but I think the more likely thing for them to do is concentrate on pitching. They've obviously lost Strider. Their pitching situation is not as good as the Phillies. I think this has probably been an issue in their playoff matchups already, even with Strider. So I think they're going to look at pitching and see what they can do in the rotation. I really think that's the key for them.
Yeah, another team you mentioned with.
I am the last guy to ask about the Mariners, but they need. I mean, they obviously have great starting pitching, terrific pitching, and they look like they're on the way to winning that division. But that offense is poor, right? I mean, they're not winning the World Series with a poor offense. So, they need to do something with offense. I think Robert is a possibility for them, but they really haven't been ultra aggressive when it comes to trading for big pieces.
Yeah, and that was my final question. I just want to say, Jon, thank you so much for joining us here at the Baseball Insiders. That was an absolute pleasure. It was a long time coming. I've been wanting to have you on the show for ages. Enjoy the Red Sox and Phillies tonight, and I appreciate you big time.
All right. Good questions, Robert. You did very well. And anytime, of course, anytime. Always a pleasure.
Thank you again to Jon Heyman for joining us here in the Baseball Insiders. Jon is someone who is extremely important to me and someone who I credit with my career. And none of where I'm at today is possible without him. You can read him and also support him on the New York Post. You can watch him on MLB Network and also on Bleacher Report as well. And I'm also here today to tell you about a special opportunity that DraftKings is presenting. DraftKings is offering a fantastic sign-up bonus for new users. New customers can place a $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim $150 in bonus bets when you sign up with our code BaseballInsider. The best part is that you will receive your rewards no matter if your first bet loses. And for me, that is quite often. So take advantage of that. Using our code BaseballInsider not only gets you these bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. And if you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use the code Baseball Insider to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to people who are 21 years or older and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly and check out the episode description for more details. I will be back here next Monday with another very special guest, someone who has been very helpful to me throughout my career, especially in recent years. Can't wait for that to debut, as Adam is also on vacation right now, a much-deserved vacation. I'll see everyone on Monday with a special guest. Have a great weekend, and thank you, everybody.